Welcome back to Unsolicited Feedback, the podcast where we cut through the noise, skip the corporate jargon, and get real about what actually drives results. Because let's be honest, hope is not a business strategy. I'm your host, Chuck Knabusch, the operations guy. And after 40 plus years across the military, corporate America, and now entrepreneurship, I've seen what works, what breaks, and why leadership, planning, and execution are the great separators between average and exceptional results. As you're catching the replay, send your thoughts or challenges directly to me at chuck@1310.com, chuck at 13ten.com. Hey, your time matters, so let's jump straight into today's topic. Today I have with me a gentleman by the name of Eddie Yee. He is the CEO of, I'm probably going to mispronounce it, Ditens Group.
That's it.
Ditens Group. I'll let Eddie explain a little bit more about what his group does, but he has a phenomenal background, both educationally as well as entrepreneurially, that we want to go ahead and dive into today. Eddie.
Thank you for having me. So, well, first of all, Ditens Group means empowerment. So we're empowering other businesses for sustainable and natural growth that actually give you qualitative data on top of the quantitative data that a lot of marketing companies are really already good at. And we are focusing on small, local service-based businesses. And we're also launching a couple different services for other agencies who are targeting these local businesses. And I guess how I started this business is to market my HR company. My very first company is an HR company. It's called Healthcare Staffing Solutions. We are based in Los Angeles. I guess a little bit about how I came about becoming an entrepreneur is I hated doing HR at a small preventive care facility in Los Angeles. And ironically, I started my HR company because of it. So I could outsource it to my company. And during COVID, it really scaled. I had no intention to scale that fast and that quickly. And because of COVID, just there was staff shortages, especially in the healthcare space. And I happened to be in LA and people needed a lot of different staff and clinical staff members in LA. So we were able to grow pretty quickly out of leveraging on these COVID related projects, but I didn't want to rely on that. So I started doing some marketing campaigns and I saw the repetitive patterns that I believe I can use to create a business, and I created Ditens Group out of it. Now we're servicing not to B2B only, but we also doing B2C as well. And because I'm in the digital space, there was a lot of different automations that I had to come up with. So I created this a company called Omnisolutions with partner and I, and we have about now 12 different proprietary apps and web services that we're servicing out to other businesses as well. And those three major pillars of services now become what we call MSO, management or service organizations. And we're in the healthcare space. So what we're trying to do is just let doctors be doctors, let business owners be, because they're good at what they're doing, what they're producing, what they're making. But as far as the administration burden, marketing, and different automations, R&D, these are all the things that they probably never thought of when they first became a business owner. Doctors probably study for becoming a doctor, not as a business owner. So we're an assistant to them. We let the business owners be business owners all while we help them grow, we help them staff, we help them automate the repetitive process.
Eddie, you're so right. I hear that all the time. Hey, I went into medicine or I went into business to go ahead and focus on this technical field. And I learned that I've got to go ahead and be a jack of all trades. So I think that's wonderful. A couple clarifying questions, because you mentioned small business, and I know everybody has a different idea of small business. And you also kind of mentioned local. Do you only work with local businesses in the LA area, or when you meant by local, just the mom and pop neighborhood businesses that we find all across the country?
So the latter, we're not only doing local businesses, but to kind of clarify what local business is, I would say a business that has a Google business profile and maybe Yelp listing, and maybe you have a brick and mortar shop, or maybe you don't, but it's a business that is serving the local community where they are, and their customer base is coming from that local community or maybe the city that they're in.
Excellent. So you have experience of spanning operations, HR, organizational psychology, and business strategy. From your perspective, what's the biggest misunderstanding leaders have about the difference between leading people and managing the business?
Good question. Here's one. I'm trying to give you a good example with the conceptual idea. So, biggest misconception is that the workforce, the human capital that is producing and delivering the services or product that these businesses are making, they think that it's always the number of salary or money figure that will impact the organizational commitment, right? There's obviously different types of commitment, but people often think that, oh, if I don't give this person a raise all the time, this person may leave. And that's not all that true. One thing that we are doing, and this is benchmarking from Lyft and Uber. When Uber drivers are taking fares and they're dropping off their customers, after maybe third or fourth ride, they can actually cash out. And you're basically optimizing your payroll, right? So they can basically cash out and get paid whenever they want, right? And what we saw statistically is that the more frequent you get paid, the higher chances that this person will show organizational commitment. What we have implemented across all my businesses is that we pay all our staff on Friday at 4 p.m., right before they go home on a weekly basis, right? And we see about 35% increase in employee retention because of this, okay? So this very example shows that you don't always have to throw money at the problem, but it's how you configure what you have, right? Modify something that you have, change a little bit to use their consumer behavior and human psychology to make sure that I'm being treated right, I'm being valued here, instead of just keep giving raises. It defines a good leadership in a way.
I think that's fascinating in that you really are taking human psychology, business psychology, and applying it in that as we as a society become more into instant gratification, whether it's by apps on our phone or whatever, rather than having to wait 2 weeks for a paycheck and having to struggle by giving that paycheck every week, you're overcoming or you're embracing that instant gratification type of notion and that psychology and going ahead and uplifting the business as, hey, this is a great place to work, not because necessarily we're doing impactful work or anything else, although that's important, don't get me wrong. But on the other hand, it's just because I'm getting paid in a timely manner, and it's in a timely manner where I don't have to manage a budget for a whole 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's exactly. Again, a lot of the companies want their HR or their workforce to adapt to the payroll periods or schedule that they have, rather than like Uber and Lyft, they give freedom to employees and they let them get paid whenever they want.
I suspect at one time, if you go back in history, more employers paid weekly just because it was easy, it was what they did. Then employers wanted to go ahead and create efficiency, so they went to the every 2 weeks, maybe even every month for executives type of payroll. It's more efficient. We only have to process it less frequently. And you're saying that realistically, that the people don't necessarily care about that efficiency on the business side. And given how fast and how wonderful computers can go ahead and process payroll, should that really be a metric that businesses and leaders follow is the efficiency of the payroll processing, or should we go ahead and focus on the people issue? I really like that.
With the different automation tools and different flexibility of these payroll processing companies, yeah, you can schedule it how frequent you want. And there's really no additional cost to do this, right? And we just figured, okay, if we can pay them on a Friday, specific Friday at 4 p.m., right before they go home,
Well,
it made a good positive impact for our business. So we're following that protocol.
excellent. Many organizations say they want a better culture, but they treat culture like an HR initiative rather than an operational system. In your experience, what actually creates a healthy culture and what unintentionally destroys it?
So, healthy culture as an employer, what I look at is because myself, I'm not a perfect person. I'm not an absolute person. I don't, and everything I'm saying is not kind of be correct all the time. And I believe for all the employees that I bring in, what I look for is this person trainable? Does this person have the attitude or has the passion to learn rather than being the perfect person that I'm trying to bring on, right? And obviously, in this will probably trickle down to, okay, if you have a high expectation of this person because this person was a perfect employee that you brought in, and if it's not, whatever results or performance this person brings in is not aligned to your expectations are, that's where the problem starts to happen, right? So what I try to do as much as possible is trying to make work environment a learning place as well. Not only this places to perform, but also make sure that you bring in the attitude of trying to learn and trying to improve. And in that way, people are more acceptable to some of the mistakes are just less performance. But again, you want to have obviously a KPI to make sure that there's a minimum quota you're meeting on a regular basis. But yeah, it's trying to come up with a work environment that's more accepting, yet you're still not compromising on the quality nor the number of places you have to meet.
Eddie, you're right. Standards have to go ahead and be set and maintained. But on the other hand, we have to realize that we're all people. We're all human. We're going to make mistakes. Can we learn from those? You're right. There are extremes, and I don't think you're anywhere near talking about the extreme. There are people who make so many mistakes that you probably can't go ahead and retain them. But those are so few and far between that realistically, nobody gets up to go to work in the morning and says, "Hey, I want to make a whole bunch of mistakes." They want to come and do a good job. They really do. Just like nobody gets up and says, "Hey, I want to be mediocre today." It's applying and taking that enthusiasm people do have and saying, "Okay, look, we understand honest mistakes, but we're going to go ahead and do some training. We're going to go ahead and develop you. We're going to help you become better should you want to." And then it's all up to them.
Yeah, it's that type of quality in a person is not, I would say it's not trainable, right? Something that you don't know, as far as skill set goes, if it's something that is trainable, the aspect of the business, then yeah, what's important is this person ready to accept this training and receptive to the materials that we're bringing in. And if the person does not have that qualification or does not have the quality or personality to accept and receptive of, then yeah, it's not gonna work.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie, I spend a lot of time talking about systems, processes, execution, but no process runs itself. It's always dependent on people. From your perspective, what do operational leaders consistently underestimate about human behavior?
Oh, well, that's a handful of question, but I'll put this into a business structure. So every business will follow a similar format of this workflow. Okay, it could be a massage parlor, it could be taco shack, it could be a CPA firm, dental practice, drug cartel. It's gonna work the same way. Okay, what's important? Obviously, is your vision, your business philosophy that kind of made up the business and you become maybe the CEO to execute a lot of different things. And then you have the CEO, you break all these action items into something that is measurable, and CEO kind of carries that action items into the work. And you have the CFO who makes everything make sense in terms of finances. But what's important is the division of workflow, the structure, the departments. So there's an external division that handles bringing the customers and reaching out to people, right? So the very first activity, that's probably the closest business activity to revenue and sales, is marketing. All right. So marketing nowadays it's all about digital marketing, and people find marketing is all about going to people where people are hanging out, right? So once you let people know that you exist, people are starting to show interest and they start buying into your service or products, right? So you have a commitment to get paid or a commitment to pay. And what do you have to do? There's a lot of promises you made throughout that process, the sales process. So you have to deliver up on that promise. So in, from moving from external division now to the fulfillment division, because these deliverables and production usually done by human capital, you have to maintain the HR well. You have to make sure that these productions are done well. And you repeat the cycle over and over and over. And people are going to start giving you feedback. Okay, well, your taco is a little salty. Hey, your services are a little, I mean, is there extra service or is there a different thing that you need that you can help me with? So when you serve about 100 different clients and you've served them 100 different tacos and then 70 of them start asking for burritos, maybe you should start thinking about making burritos because that's another channel of revenue. And now you're moving towards the internal division where you start doing R&D, research and development. If I'm serving 100 people and now 70 people have asked burritos, you make 100, 200, 300 burritos to make sure that each time tastes exactly the same. That's the quality control. And you make that into a recipe, you make that into job description, you make that into SOP, policy and procedure. And after the administration, now you have a perfectly servable burrito. And you let the communication department know, hey, marketing team, now we have a burrito that we can serve. So that work cycle I just explained, all right? People often forget where their business is stuck. Usually that cycle right there I just talked about as far as the external division, fulfillment division, internal division, when you have a problem, you know you can isolate where the problem is occurring. Whether you have a growth issue, you have an HR issue, you have a retention issue, organization commitment, or maybe people are not buying your services anymore. Is it because I'm not advancing my product or improving my product and my competitors are doing the opposite? That's how I always assess where my positioning is and where I can improve in terms of operations.
Great insights, Eddie. Hey, AI is a big thing and it's everywhere today. So AI is changing almost every business function. What parts of leadership do you believe technology will enhance? And what parts can never be delegated to AI?
So, I mean, as far as the leadership goes, there's a lot of different tools and resources out there that would put a great impact on leadership. But what it really changes or impact the business is the consumer. And people have been shifting from just traditional search on maybe Google or Bing or whatever search engine they're using, now shifting towards AI powered search, such as Gemini, Perplexity, and ChatGPT and whatnot, right? And I'm not sure if you noticed this, but have you noticed when you search on Google, sometimes it triggers an AI overview and sometimes it doesn't? Do you know when it would trigger that and what makes a difference?
I do not.
Okay, so when you're looking for traditionally it was like best dentist near me, and all these companies that want to be ranked on the first page of Google have done some kind of a search engine optimization work to be on the first page of Google because that's what brought in organic traffic. But nowadays, if you ask a question to Google in a question form, obviously, it will trigger an AI overview. So instead of now people have been shifted from you asking best dentist near me to now who is the best dentist in Los Angeles, California, and it will trigger an AI overview. And what this happens is that you have this information that AI have scraped off and gathered and researched on behalf of that consumer who's asking the question with reference points, with the citation. What happens is that when this AI overview gets triggered, all the click-through rates on the first page of Google gets it significantly dropped because you all the research has been done for you.
Right.
Everything that you need to know and make an informed decision about is already done there. So what leadership should really think about and how they should leverage is, okay, what are the questions that my consumers or my customers are asking right before they spend the money? And if you can anticipate and extrapolate all these questions that are being asked right before they become an active consumer, you can actually leverage that and start being identified and start being trusted by AI, which now people are relying on.
Excellent. I think that insight just by itself, I think is fascinating and will be valuable to the listeners. Okay, before we kind of finish or wrap up, let me ask you another question. Imagine it's 10 years from now. One of the leaders that you've coached is being interviewed on a podcast like this. What would you hope they say they learned from you, not about business, but about leadership?
For me, there's two things I would talk about. One thing is it really isn't about me. It should be about the service. It should be about the product and how that's helping the people around us, people that is using whatever we're creating and producing to make their lives better, to make their time meaningful. And I take that and I try to do some philanthropy because there's gonna be point for me where the resources that I'm bringing in, the money and time, is gotta be enough to sustain my living. And that's all I need to really just live my life. I don't want to buy luxurious things. I don't want to become this crazy spender. What I want to do is use my businesses to help those who are in need of marketing, HR, or AI automations, because at the end of the day, money is a tool and it's how you use this tool. It's not a goal, it's not an objective in life, it's a tool and it's how you use a tool to make your life meaningful, right? If there's business owners out there, listeners out there who wants to, okay, what is meaning of doing all this work? What is it, right? Well, you should find the meaning, but money and the time or whatever resources that we're bringing is a tool. So don't you forget that.
Excellent. Well, Eddie, I want to turn it over to you. Is there something that I missed, I didn't ask, some point that you want to make that the listeners need to know from you?
Sure. So we recently launched an automation tool to collect reviews, and I talked briefly about how it tries to answer a lot of these questions. People have been shifting from just general search to a question form to trigger an AI. A lot of the sources that these AI scrape off of is a trust signal. And one of the trust signal is collecting reviews. What other people have mentioned or what other people had said about these product or services. So people often forget how important collecting reviews are and what type of context that these reviews have. So we've launched this product and our service where, let's say, John Doe had received some kind of plumbing services from this business owner or this business. Our tool can actually generate a review on behalf of John Doe, who actually received the services, and trying to write the review to as close as possible to reflect their experience, and send the link to that consumer and have every opportunity for that person to modify, add, or subtract the review. But it makes it so much easier for that person to leave a review because it has all the review platform links right before the consent on review that's been generated. And it's so much easier for business owners to collect review because it's never been so easy before, right? They often forget that collecting review is the easiest and cheapest marketing that you can do. And especially, it's very, very important, especially when AI is always looking for the trust signal.
And I would imagine it increases the number of reviews a business gets because you're making the performance, the creation of the review so much easier rather than just sending out a blank form, hey, fill this out, or tell others about what your experience was. It helps to go ahead and frame it already so the person can take what has been sent to them or they can modify it in any way to fit their exact experience. But it certainly breaks down that barrier and that obstacle of having to go ahead and fill out just a blank form.
That's right.
Excellent. Love that. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Unsolicited Feedback. Thanks for joining me, but don't just nod along. Apply something from today's conversation because results don't just show up from listening, they show up because you did something. Even one small action this week will move the needle farther than a month of good intentions. If you want to go deeper, scan the QR code or schedule a 30-minute strategy chat. I'd love to hear how you're using planning, leadership, and execution to make sure hope never becomes your business strategy. Drop a comment, like the episode. If you want to reach out to Eddie, he's got a QR code up on the screen also. I'm Chuck Knabusch. Until next time, stay focused, stay disciplined, and don't you dare rely on hope.